Now that there's some game tape out there and the Seahawks are going to have a week to prepare for Mason Rudolph, will Mason be able to carry on that great performance from Saturday against the Bengals? Welcome back to Mike Drop Sports, everybody. I'm Jason. Let's talk about what Mason Rudolph is going to need to do in order to continue to be successful this season and march this team toward a possible playoff berth. The Pittsburgh Steelers last week against the Bengals attacked those edges, running tons of speed outs, mirrored routes, attacking the edges of the football field, deep, intermediate to deep. They definitely took advantage of George Pickens being matched up one-on-one. But believe you me, the Seattle Seahawks will not allow George Pickens, at least in my thoughts right now, allow him to beat them one-on-one. Allow Mason Rudolph to throw that ball down the field consistently over and over. You're going to have to work for those plays if you're Mason and George. You're going to have to be able to spread the ball around if you're Mason Rudolph. You're going to have to work that short to intermediate pass game to open that deep ball up. If you're Mason Rudolph, you've struggled in the past throwing that short to intermediate ball. You've been highly inaccurate, and it's been a problem for him during his 11 starts that he had in the NFL prior to this. Mason Rudolph has had struggles in that area, and I think if you're the Seahawks, that's what you're going to try to force him into doing. Go back into his old game tape. You're going to try to force him into doing things that he's been uncomfortable with in the past. But we did see Mason Rudolph progress and do things better this time around. He had better pocket presence. He was more decisive with his decisions. He was able to make things happen when they looked like they wouldn't be able to, where he was able to fit footballs in tight windows and get the ball out quickly and with some high velocity, and that helped him a great deal. And his decision making looked to be a lot better, and that's all you can ask for is progression from these guys. Sometimes it takes guys 5 years, 3 years, whatever, to get everything put together. And Mason Rudolph now, does he still struggle with that short to intermediate pass game? I thought he did better against the Bengals with it, but they didn't attack the middle of the field like you would like them to, like you want them to. And now that the Seahawks maybe will prepare for Mason Rudolph's deep ball and try to take that away and maybe force his throws a little bit, I think Mason needs to learn, hey, where everybody's going to be. Learn where to check it down, where to attack the middle of the field, and you got to utilize those tight ends. And I think if you're the Steelers and you're going on the road to Seattle, you got to come out with some different looks. Don't be so vanilla because the scheme is still very elementary. So you're going to have to mix things up a little bit. And I think you need to use that run game, use those tight ends to your advantage. Attack with those early and often. Attack with those groups. Attack with the run game, attack with the tight ends, and attack that middle of the Seattle Seahawks defense. Loosen that defense up a little bit. Let them start to cheat up, to play that short to intermediate game, to stop that from you, stop the Steelers from doing that over and over. Then that opens up that pass game. That allows the Steelers to start stretching that defense yet again. But you have to do that, guys. You have to use those tight ends on some quick comeback routes, drag routes, quick outs, quick ins. You have to do whatever it takes to get them the football. You have to draw that defense back in because they're going to be waiting on that deep ball, and they're going to be waiting on George Pickens to try to smoke them. And they're going to be ready with a safety over the top. They're going to try to scheme that safety and make Mason Rudolph make that mistake. They're going to try to make it seem like, hey, he's not going to give that corner any help, and there, boom, he is. He's going to be there, and it's going to be an interception or something of that nature, broken up passes. But the Seahawks under Pete Carroll are definitely going to be prepared for that, and they're not going to allow you to beat them that easily. The Seahawks are fighting for their playoff life, and I don't think that they're just going to allow another simple vanilla game plan to come in and take that from them. They're going to attack, and they're going to attack the areas of strength. And if you're the Steelers, you have to make other areas your strength also. You have to start to get everything involved. And Mason Rudolph had that great performance against the Bengals. But guys, that was a performance in which he didn't utilize all his weapons. There was still stuff left in the tank for Mason Rudolph to pull out of there. There was still tricks in his bag that he could have used. And that's a good thing. I'm not dogging Mason for it. He was able to have a great performance and only use a quarter of what his possible repertoire is, of what he could possibly pull out there. And that is a fantastic thing. That's great news if you're a Steelers fan. But you have to be able to come out in these big, jumbo, heavy sets this Saturday and attack this Seahawks defense with an aggressive nature. Why were the Steelers successful, though, on the offensive line? Why was Mason Rudolph able to deliver the football when we've seen quarterback after quarterback on this Steelers team not be able to do it? Why was the offensive line better? It was because Mason Rudolph wasn't dancing around and having happy feet back there. His pocket presence gave that offensive line the ability to know where he was, to be able to protect him in a way that they're not guessing where he's going to be. They know when it play breaks down where he's probably running to. It was more they had more continuity within that group. And you could tell that Mason was more of a leader, more of a calm guy, more reliable for that offensive line, and it calmed them down and they were able to play better. But now you take that and use that to your advantage if you're Mason Rudolph and dump that ball off to those tight ends. What about those drag routes that we didn't see a ton of? Like with a Calvin Austin, a Deontay Johnson, a George Pickens, allow them to run after the catch. This offense still lacks a ton, guys. There's still a lot of potential. They don't have a ton of options. The scheme is vanilla. You can definitely see that scheme is troublesome. And that's not going to be able to be fixed right now. But if you're Mike Sullivan and Eddie Faulkner, you gotta take that scheme that's in place, that you need to use, that you have to use because you can't change it all, and you gotta make things a little bit different. You gotta mix things up. Take the route combinations and mix them up a little bit. And Mason Rudolph has to take advantage of those. He has to take advantage of the underneath throws, the quick hitters, allow the receivers to use the yards after catch to their advantage and gain some big yards after they catch these little short passes, these dinks and dunks. And that is going to open up that deep game. I'm telling you, you're going to bring guys up then. Utilize things to set up other things. We keep saying that. You have to. The run game has to set up the play action pass. The short to intermediate pass game has to set up the deep ball. Those are the types of things you have to use. You're not playing an opponent that you've seen already twice this year to where you beat them once and they're trying to load up and not let you beat them in that same area again. They're trying to correct the deficiencies from the first game to where it's a little easier to make a plan of attack. It is. It's just a little bit simpler. You see people, you're more comfortable with them. But hey, this time you're going to have to come out with a totally different way of thinking, a totally different game plan. And let's get off of Mason Rudolph just a little bit. Let's go to that wide receiver room. Those guys still don't understand their job. They're still bitching if they're supposedly open or they think they're open and they don't get the football. They don't fully understand what is going on. I don't think they fully comprehend what they're supposed to do sometimes. If you're running a clear out route, the quarterback you're not number 1 or 2 or 3 in the progression. And if Mason Rudolph is going through his proper progressions of the play, and you're not part of that, you're the guy that's clearing out space in the wide receiver room. That's your job on that play. You have to understand that job. You have to know that job. You can't bitch if you don't get the football. Yes, you're open, but you're the guy that was clearing space. You're not part of the progression. You can't act like a baby. Like Deontay Johnson, I saw him several times in the game do that. His job, his assignment was to draw players and clear them out to open up that space that the Steelers were trying to attack. And if you're Deontay Johnson, you can't get mad about that because Mason Rudolph isn't looking your way there. And yeah, maybe sometimes you get lucky and the play starts to break down and he just resorts to looking happenstance to look your way and he throws the ball there. Okay, you'll get that play. But 9 times out of 10, you're not getting it because you're not part of the progression, guys. And the Steelers wide receivers have to start thinking about that. They have to start knowing what their job is and what the purpose of their route is. Until they fully comprehend that, and you can see that it's obvious that they don't, at least in my eyes, that they don't comprehend that, it's going to be a problem. You're going to have wide receivers pouting and throwing fits. You're just gonna. Now, George Pickens had a big day. You didn't see any of that out of him. But Deontay was held in check, and he felt like that was a problem. And yes, Mason missed him on one big one that he probably should hit him, and he probably wants that one back. But he's not going to hit all the throws, guys. Nobody is. Nobody hits them all. Maybe you have a game that you feel like you're in the zone and you play almost to perfection. But 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be able to hit them all, guys. It's just the way it goes. It's just the way it is. But that receiver room has to become more balanced. They have to run those routes every time with quickness, aggression, like they're getting the ball every time, and they're not even part of the progression, but you have to act like you are. And you have to fire off, and you have to really run it with some meaning, and not, hey, I'm just the guy that's clearing this play out or whatever. I'm just going to run half-ass. I know I'm not getting the ball. Hey, it's a run play. I'm not going to really try to sell this route that I'm running to draw the DBs back to open up a lane for the runner on the outside. You have to be better if you're the wide receiver room. And hopefully this week, whoever these coaches are, Frisbin Jackson, whoever these guys are inside that wide receiver room, they have to really start beating it into these guys' head. This is your job. Every play, you have a purpose. And it may not be getting the football, but every play, everybody has to do their job. All 11 have to work together. And that wide receiver room doesn't fully understand that, guys. And it's very obvious if you turn on the tape. Very, very obvious. But that offensive line, that wide receiver room, the running backs, the quarterbacks, they all have to work together. And it's just a must. That's what has to happen. It has to happen. And you can't have just the quarterback and George Pickens doing well. You can't have just the quarterback in the run game doing okay. You can't have the offensive line playing okay, but the skill guys are dropping things. It all has to work together. It all has to come together, and it all has to work as one big giant machine, man. And if you're the Steelers, you know the Seahawks and Pete Carroll are going to be prepared. This is a defense that's going to be able to do some things special. They have a couple old former Steelers in Artie Burns, Devin Bush. Artie Burns playing a lot of nickel role. Devin Bush was the third leading tackler on the Seattle Seahawks defense. But if you're the Steelers, you know their deficiencies. You know where they lack. You've seen it day after day. You know Devin Bush is a shorter guy that has trouble guarding big tight ends. So what are you going to do? You're going to put your big boys on them, Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, and allow them to work those quick stop routes and in or out combination type routes. You're going to allow them to work those against a guy like Devin Bush. You're going to try to create those one-on-one matchups with that motion guy. You're going to try to draw a motion guy and draw Devin Bush to him. You're going to try to do those things. You're going to try to create those matchups that are unfavorable for guys like Devin Bush, who are smaller players, who have trouble guarding guys that have speed, that have height and strength. You know that's going to be a problem. So attack the things that you know. You know Artie Burns has problems in coverage at times. Force him into those one-on-one situations and force him into making big plays. Force the hand of these guys that you know have deficiencies. You got to attack things you know. You got to attack the places that have to be attacked in order to be successful, and that is the short to intermediate game. When we're talking about the Seahawks, you're going to have to use that first. You're going to have to run the football effectively. The offensive line is going to have to step up just another notch. Games keep cranking up a little bit more each week as we move toward the playoffs. You're going to have that offensive line have to just take that next level of aggression. Those running backs are going to have to really be able to sell their fakes, run hard when they do get the ball. They're going to have to use a lot of misdirection. They're just going to have to open things up a little bit. If you're Mason Rudolph, you really got to sell the play action passes. That's going to open up those deep balls for you because you know they're going to sell out on that deep ball. They're not going to allow you to get beat or allow themselves to get beat by that deep ball when you just did it the week before. It's the NFL. You got to come out with something different each week and be different and exotic each week. It's just the way it goes. All right, guys, if there's anything else you want to add to what I'm saying here, please put it in the comments. we're going to wrap this video up a little bit, but I just wanted to kind of let you guys know how Mason Rudolph needs to attack this defense. They ran a lot of speed outs last week, a lot of deep balls, and I'm not sure if that's going to be able to work this week. They're going to have to run a little bit different styles of route combinations. They're going to have to dip into the bag of the route trees and spread things around a little bit. Utilize wide receivers to clear out spots. Use those tight ends to be aggressive and attack the middle of the field with guys like Devin Bush out there. There's so many things that they have to do this week in order to continue to be successful, because teams aren't going to allow you to just keep doing the same thing. This is the NFL, so you're going to have to be different. You're going to have to come out new and fresh each week. So anything else you want to add, put it in the comments. Let me know. And what I'm saying, guys, I had some other commenters acting like I'm giving you the definitive answer. I'm giving you the answer to fix everything. I'm not. Things I bring up are just talking points. They're just things to get your mind working and talk about this football team. I've said it before, and some people take what I say to heart sometimes, and don't do that, guys. Enjoy it. Have conversation. You don't have to F-bomb me because you think I'm wrong or something. Just have normal conversation. It's easy to do. So be an adult in the comments. Treat people with respect. I appreciate that. And most of the guys and girls that are on here regularly do an amazing job at that. So I'm preaching to the choir. It's just a few that we get that roll in here and there randomly, that don't fully listen to the content, that don't fully know what this conversation has developed into. Now that we've been talking Steelers here for 16, 17 weeks straight during this regular season, and the conversation has evolved each week. So some people jump in the conversation late and try to spin the narrative into what they want, and that's not cool. So they got to watch it all. They got to make sure that they listen to everything and look at where the conversation is, and look at what we have said prior to this. Look what about the other videos and how this conversation is built over time. So again, guys, I appreciate it. We're going to wrap it up, and we're going to keep breaking things down. Don't forget our live show tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to be live with your boy Sean. We're going to talk Steelers. We're going to talk a lot about what's going on with this football team as they head into Seattle. We're going to take and field your comments, questions, and concerns about this team as we are live, reading them off. And we will appreciate you all stopping through. And let's get that live count of viewers up real high this week. Let's make it crazy and get a really good show going with a lot of conversation and a lot of back and forth talk about your Pittsburgh Steelers. So until next time, I'm Jason. This is Mike Drop Sports. Peace.